Um, I'm going to make some brief comments. I generally prefer to listen more than talk, and I very much take to heart Mike's comments regarding vision. We have 75 or so people here tonight, and look forward to the opportunity to hear from the public. I see business owners, property owners, residents, business property owners, and a good cross-section of the community out here to see this presentation and to participate tonight. As a concept, I very much support the concept of mixed use. I believe the traditional neighborhood ordinance, was the TND ordinance, is the right thing for Newtown. I think that conceptually, the idea of office, retail, and residential use on that property is consistent with the TND ordinance and is consistent with State Street and our concept of live, work, and play in Newtown, and with the steeple and site, live, work, play, and worship. And the concept is consistent with what we have on State Street. We have retail stores, we have offices, and we have apartments above the retail stores and the offices. So conceptually, I like it. I share concerns that Gerard has, and I imagine most of the people in town have regarding traffic and parking. I also have another concern, and that's the sociological impact of for lack of a better word, impact upon the town. And I admit when I saw the headline saying 300 condominiums, I had a viscerally negative reaction to that, and the fact that such a large portion of the total population of the town would be in this one little place. And it does look like, this picture looks to me like an awful lot of buildings in a relatively small space. But I'm here tonight largely to be educated both by the developers and by the residents and business owners as to really their thoughts on the impact that potentially having that many people in a small place may have on the town, in addition to the traffic and parking issues that the development may create. So with that, I look forward to hearing from the members of the public.
Get there shortly.
I think Gerard's comments about the scope of the project I share. I was at the Planning Commission meeting last week and at the work session this week, and the comments I passed kind of focused my mind on the impact of this on the rest of the borough in terms of the tax base, taxpayers, what it's going to cost the borough to do this. And I did take Alan up on his invitation to come visit him and chat with him about the project, and I spent about an hour with him yesterday, and I appreciate that time, and I gave him the benefit of my thoughts. You know, we do need to do something with that area. It does need to be developed, but I use the expression, you know, we were on the right side of the highway, and we were going down the road with office complex, retail, and condominiums, and now we're on the left side of the highway, and we're seeing a different view of it. And I know Alan's in the business of developing properties, and this is perhaps his best case scenario. And I'm sure there's a worst case scenario that says I don't do it at all, and the solution is probably somewhere in the middle. And I just don't think we're there yet in terms of the scope of the project. But I know he is more than capable of coming up with a design that will fit within a character and a profile of Newtown Borough. You know, I've heard everyone talk about San Antonio and the Riverwalk and Princeton. Well, I don't think you can put Princeton and San Antonio into Newtown. It's a different community with its different profiles and characteristics. The concern I have is we as council have work to do when we look at something like that. The work we have to do is to determine how we support it. What is the impact of that support on all of the residents of the town? The demographics that have been offered in terms of the types of individuals who might buy into the condominium suggests more of the retired type of buyer as opposed to the working buyer, which will have a direct impact on our earned income tax, so that the revenues that we might derive from a different mix of use will be generating additional revenue for the borough. What is it going to cost us to put police on the street out there? Gerard's point of what is the ownership? I'm concerned about the ownership. You know, do we really want to own a parking garage, maintain the parking garage, plow the parking garage, put down the safety materials to keep the ramps clear in the wintertime? You know, just what will it cost us? Or is this something that Alan's vision is I own it, I'll maintain it, you don't have to worry about it. We don't know the answer to that question, and I'm not so sure today Alan knows the answer to that question, but we as council, I think, have to have those discussions ourselves in terms of what we think is best for the community. So I think I'm somewhere between a rock and a hard place right now in really giving you, a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I like the idea. I know something has to be done, but I'm not so sure it's that.
We all have a vision of Newtown in our minds, but it may not actually be what's out there. I have to say that when I saw I actually had gone down to see what was in Alan's office as well and see what did the sketches look like. And my first impression of the buildings was, wow, I don't know, that's really Newtown. And then I walked back along State Street in front of the old Stockburger site, and I looked at the buildings that were around there. I looked across the street at the old billiard building. I looked down the street at where the hardware house is and so on. And then I walked around to on Center Avenue, opposite where the proposed piazza is, and I looked at the bank building, and I looked at the side of Starbucks and so on. And I was struck by how different those buildings really are than what I imagined when I had my eyes closed, and I thought, oh, Newtown, it's a little quaint colonial town. I also thought about a presentation that Jeff Marshall gave at the Historic Society a few months back, where he talked about the changes to our historic buildings over time and what had been done to them. And I was surprised, because if we look at buildings like the Godwin building, we think, oh, well, that always looked like that, right? Well, in fact, it actually looked quite different. And that a lot of houses in Newtown that had front porches or now have front porches didn't used to have front porches or had different front porches, did have shutters, didn't have shutters, had this kind of roof, had that kind of roof, that what Newtown started as and what Newtown has become has been an evolution over time. And then I had another thought about what were the different developments that have occurred in more recent memory. And many of you out there are living in some of those places. Washington Village brought in a huge increase in the population to the borough of Newtown. And now everyone says, well, of course, that's all part of Newtown. It fits. People probably can't imagine Newtown without that. Okay? Think about Barclay Court, which actually was one of Alan's earlier projects. And how I remember when that was being built, how there was this great hue and cry about trying to cram all these condominiums into this little spot. And once they were built, it became quite the place to live. I'm thinking about some of the other things that have happened in town where for example, Jefferson Court. When Madron was there and the proposal was made to build Jefferson Court, there was a huge hue and cry about, oh, we're going to lose this, we're going to lose that. And Jefferson Court has blended nicely into Newtown. So it's really hard, especially those of us who aren't architects and don't have the long-term vision and can't kind of close our eyes and see how this is all going to fit, for us really to be able to look at a picture and say that is or is not Newtown. So with that backdrop, I have to tell you that I'm very excited about the prospect of development on this site. I think mixed use is what this town needs. I think this town needs a kick in the pants real quick, because our population is changing, the surroundings are changing. The kind of town that it was when I moved in the mid-'70s, we were surrounded by cows. You have to go pretty far to find a cow now. I mean, you used to have cows around. The day we bought our house, the place stank of manure. The first of the month, beginning in April, you knew it was the first of the month because that's when the manure got spread. You don't smell manure around here anymore. It's a completely different area. The role of Newtown in terms of a commercial district in this area is totally different than it was 30 years ago. So I think it's really important that we look at this opportunity. We have this huge plot of land, and as was pointed out earlier, we can do something really interesting now, or we can take our chances to see what happens later. And I think we really need to take advantage of this unique opportunity. There are a couple items on here that I think are really exciting. I do like the entrance on Center Avenue. I think that entrance to town is particularly ugly at this point. That parking lot, I could lose that parking lot to a better design without any question at all. Now, I'm not saying I want to lose the parking spaces. I'm saying that the way that lot looks right now, it's really an eyesore. It's not quite as bad as the Acme, but it's pretty close. I think it's the idea of bringing in some development around that and making that a nice entrance to town benefits not only the borough, but it's going to benefit the township too, because it's a nice entrance. It's a nice way to draw people back and forth. When I heard 300 residential units, I have to say that is a large number. I would have to be convinced that how well that would work. I'm sure it's going to have an impact on the borough. I'm not sure whether there should be a different mix back and forth, and I'm sure that Alan has a lot of things to consider too, because he might do his engineering study and discover that there are reasons why he can't do this, that, or the other thing, and he'll be back with a different idea. But all along the same concept of having a mix of different kinds of uses. One thing this borough doesn't have is a lot of housing that's accessible. And many of us here who have been running up and down stairs for all these many years may find in the not too distant future that we would like to stay in Newtown, but we'd like to stay on one floor. And there's a possibility, I'm assuming that since you've been thinking about this perhaps in your development now, and that you have an opportunity here to have some kind of living units that are a little more accessible. Our retail stores are not all that accessible either. And here's an opportunity for some accessible stores to be built. People can get around from one thing to another, because in this day and age you have to build things accessibly. You can't get away with having 2 or 3 steps to get into your store. And it's unfortunate, I mean, it's not unfortunate, it's just a creation of history that we have a lot of buildings in our town that are not easy to get in and out of. But I think that the kind of interest and new focal point that putting this development in will have for the town, I think, is very important. I think it's going to, as much as we don't want to crowd our town with a lot of people just sort of coming in and looking for the day, I think we want to retain our place on the map. I think Newtown always was a place on the map, whether it was a place on the map for people coming in from their farms a long way out, or coming down from Doylestown for the day, or going to Goodnose to have ice cream from far away because you heard Goodnose was a great place to go. I think it would be really nice for Newtown to retain that center, that attraction. And so there are a lot of kinks that have to be worked out here. And we've seen various iterations of this plan, and I'm sure we will see more as we talk about, as a developer gets into more detail and tries to figure out how we can actually do the things he'd like to do. I'm sure we're going to see changes. But overall, I'm supportive of this plan.